Hello. This is Added Time. Hopefully, by now, your go-to women's football podcast. We are going to be dropping the hot takes and the cold stats about the latest WSL games. I'm your host, Abbie McCarthy, and alongside me is two of the best ballers in the league, Fran Kirby and Beth England. Hello, you two.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Last weekend, we were saying the title was basically decided. It's now pretty much wrapped in a bow with Man City's name on it after them beating Chelsea 5-1 this weekend. So many sloppy passes from Chelsea, and it was a total demolition job, I thought, from Man City.
It sounds bad because I feel, as I've been watching Chelsea the last couple of weeks, I feel it's been coming. I feel like something like this has been in the works. I think they got very lucky last time they played Manchester City, who didn't have Kerolin, who obviously stole the show yesterday. And I felt that was a massive loss for them in the first game, in the cup game. Then obviously the result against Arsenal. And I think obviously, like we said on the last podcast, it wasn't always about the results, it was about the performances. And if you're stringing along constant bad runs of performances, there's going to be a moment where you're going to get a beating. Basically, I think it happened to us when we were at Chelsea a couple of times. We weren't performing very well, and then we got a bang, and it kind of brings you back to that reality of we really need to improve here. And it kind of just felt a bit like how we spoke about last time. It was like the cracks were there, but they weren't worked on. The same mistakes were being made. The formation was the same. I felt players were playing in positions that maybe doesn't suit them. I don't understand Alyssa Thompson as a 9. She's an out-and-out winger. You need to give her that 1v1 battle. Of course, she scores a goal yesterday, but we don't really see the best of her, I don't think, in that position. I watch the players, and as a player, when you look at players on the pitch, you look at them, you go, their heads are not here right now. There's something that's going on, whether it's in training, whether it's off the pitch, on the pitch, coaching points, whatever it is, their heads are not there right now. And they really need to quickly find a way of getting back to, if things are not working on the ball, if things are not working in terms of set pieces, then the one thing you have to do is be really hard to beat. And right now, watching Chelsea, they don't look particularly hard to beat for these top teams in terms of their setup, in terms of their transitions to defend. I sort of saw, was it Kerolin's second goal? It's a set piece and Chelsea's got no one back. And she's just running 1v1 straight away from her own half. So things like that has to be worked on. That has to be addressed. That can be changed. So those are the things that they need to change quickly. Of course, people are not always going to give you 10 out of 10 performances on the ball, but off the ball, you have to be secure, especially against a team like Manchester City. So it was tough to watch, but I think when it got to 2-0, kind of sat there thinking this could be 5 or 6 now in terms of the boost that it gave Man City. You could see kind of the arrogance of them, kind of like, not arrogance in a bad way, but in a way of like, we've got you here, we're gonna go after you.
Yeah, I feel like Man City's mentality this season just feels different. They truly believe they can win any game. Such a statement win against Chelsea. I mean, it's that front line, isn't it, for City? They have been so impressive this season. So they've scored 44 goals to Chelsea's 25 this season. So they just have that clinical edge now, don't they?
Yeah, I think when you've got players that they've got in form and in form together, it's just a lethal combination. You could argue Bunny's goal, is it a foul on Germa or not? I think you could swing either way with that. But again, getting bullied off the ball almost in a way. You've got your back line all over the place in terms of, like Fran said, from a set piece. Like, Kerolin's quick. Like, you should be having some of your fastest players back waiting on that transition. And like Kira Walsh, did her best, but she wasn't ever going to make up that ground, and neither was Millie. So I think when they've got such threatening forward line players, especially that are paceful as well, you have to be prepared for all situations, and they just didn't look prepared at all. And as Fran said, it's kind of like, you want to get some good results and find that form. We've seen the cracks coming from Chelsea. You want to start chipping away and almost working on the performances whilst picking up the results. But the place that they were in, the last team they probably wanted to face was Man City when they're in such unbelievable form. And they have been all year. You've touched on the amount of goals they've scored in comparison to Chelsea. And it's not often you would say that Chelsea are one of the highest scoring team. They've got an abundance of and caliber of players that will score you goals every day of the week. But for some reason, that's just not clicking. And it'll show a lot about their personalities and how they regroup after this one. Obviously not ideal with the situation they're in the league, but they still have a chance to bring home some silverware if needed against Man United in the Subway Cup. So I think that's the only saving grace that they have left in terms of like league football. Obviously, Champions League is another story, but in terms of their campaign in the league, it has been pretty bad in the last few weeks. But again, this is their first chance of potentially losing the league since 2019. Obviously, we spoke about this previously. Chelsea have been the team to beat, and they're finally, like, other teams have finally caught up to them. And you can't take away all the success that they've had because everyone's going into meltdown. But it's like they have been the most established team in English football for a long period of time. And yes, there's cracks coming. Yes, we're seeing not as good of performances as the fans would like, but it's quite harsh seeing, I think, the reaction from the fan base towards the team, considering the amount of things that they've won and brought to the football club.
Yeah, you can't deny what Chelsea have achieved over the last 6 seasons. It's so impressive, isn't it? But it does hurt my blue heart to say that Chelsea have just not brought it in 2 of the biggest games this season, against Arsenal last week, now against Man City. Chelsea a little bit on the ropes here. I mean, much more than they have been in a long time. Lots of criticism coming their way. How do we think the rest of their season's going to play out?
I mean, I completely agree with what Beth said there. I think they were not always going to, as much as Chelsea fans and people who have played at the club, as much as we'd love to sit here and say they're going to dominate for the next 25 years, no one's going to touch them, no one's going to compete with them. And that's not the case in this league. In this league, other teams will look at it and go, we need to do something to try and catch them, to try and make it difficult for them to continue to dominate. And there are teams in this league who are willing to invest to make that happen. You know, Manchester City have invested, Arsenal have invested, Man United had a very, very good transfer window. Tottenham now as well, also investing in the areas that need to be invested in. So it was never going to be smooth sailing for the foreseeable future. And, you know, it's not easy to win again and again and again and again. It's hard work, it's graft. It doesn't just come because you buy X amount of players or whoever you buy. It's about what you do as a team and what you do as a coaching staff to make it happen. I think with Sonia, I think she's under pressure more so now because of what she said in the press conferences rather than kind of what's happened before. I think to sit there and say she doesn't feel that the club have done enough in January to give her a world-class, you know, missing world-class players. When you've spent £2 million on 2 players, I don't think that that is an excuse that you can use at a club like Chelsea. I think Chelsea have always been known for investing and buying players that need to be bought, paying players that, you know, are at a top high caliber salary range. So I think having comments like that only gets people on your back even more, especially from other teams as well, not even from your own fans. It's more other teams going, well, hold on a second. You're the ones who've constantly been investing, actually. You're the ones who've constantly been buying players in January, in the summer, spending a lot of money. So I think that's probably where a lot more people are getting frustrated with the comments rather than, yes, we can talk about the on-field, we can talk about the tactics, we can talk about the performances, but off the pitch, you kind of have to have that, I wouldn't say humbleness, to just accept kind of in a way that, you know, what we're doing right now isn't working. I think people would appreciate that and respect that a lot more if you said, look, we're in a really difficult place right now. We're trying to make, you know, the differences that we need to make happen. We are in continuous talks with the board in terms of talking what we need. We are maybe missing a few elements, but we still should be doing better. And I think that's how everyone feels from the outside. The caliber of players that they have, the experience that they have, they should be doing better. And of course, look, I think massive credit to Manchester City and where they're at. I think they're playing some amazing football. They're being extremely ruthless. I think they look really together as a team in terms of, you can see the expression when someone makes a tackle, the goalkeeper makes a save. You can see how much they are kind of coming together to make this work. So I think right now they're in a really tough spot, but it's a spot that they can get themselves out of. Maybe not to win the league, but in terms of, like Beth said, go and win some silverware, get some Champions League football. Then you're looking at the end of the year going, okay, we didn't win the league, but we won the Subway Cup, we won the FA Cup, we got to the Champions League. Then it kind of flips the narrative. But if they do not change whatever is going wrong, whether that is tactics, whether that is personnel, whether that is formation changes, then you're looking at it going, how much time does Sonia have left? Chelsea expect trophies. That's what we were always told when we were at the club. We used to get grilled. We drew a game, we would get grilled. Chelsea is about trophies. If you're not, I think there's a very viral clip where Emma is sitting in front of us saying, get better or I'll get someone else in who can. And that is what Chelsea can do. They do have the calibre to do that. So the players will be hurting. Absolutely. You hurt when you play for Chelsea Football Club and you're not at that level and you're not performing and you're not winning. But I do think there has to come a time where changes need to be made for them to continue to grow into the league.
Yeah, Chelsea not used to losing, and neither is Sonia Bonpastor. Suffers consecutive losses for the first time ever in her managerial career after 181 games. You know, pretty wild stat. She's going to want to set things right in the next game. But let's make sure we are heaping praise on Man City because they were such a force on the day. Kerolin, she was just superb.
Honestly, what a weapon Man City have got with her, because like even the types of finishes in all 3 goals, like obviously the first one, does it take a little deflection? Obviously the reactions on to be able to stop the goal was tough. The second goal, running from inside her own half, absolutely blitzing everybody, and the audacity for the chip at the end over Hannah. And then, obviously the third goal's come from like a lovely ball across, getting in front of Sandy Baltimore. And you can sit there and say, yeah, that's an easy tap-in, but players have got to be there. They've got to have that willingness to get in the box and be on the end of those crosses and finish it. And that's exactly what she did. And fortunately for her, she's around, obviously, some of the best players in the world, like, say, Vivian Miedema's in unbelievable form, Buddy Shaw, like Lauren Hemp's, but being back in the squad since her injury has massively improved Manchester City. And I think they're just full of confidence. And when all of them, as I said earlier, are firing on all cylinders, it's a very dangerous team to be up against. But it's not even just their front line, their back line, their midfield. Laurel Kinder-Brown is like Hasegawa, they're pulling off like unbelievable performances week after week. I think City centre-backs have had one of the strongest partnerships in the WSL this year. Like everyone's showing up for them. And like we've said multiple times, how often has Man City become so close and then drop the ball? That ball's not been dropped so far, and they are out to win absolutely everything. And yeah, they're certainly making the stamp on the league this year.
They're deadly now. And I think in previous years, you knew Manchester City in the way that they played and they kept the ball very nicely, but you knew they were never going to hurt you. They would hurt you maybe once or twice, but now they've just got an eye for goal. They play through you, they break your press, and they don't just turn around and come back, maybe like they used to. It's right, okay, Lauren Hemp's got the ball, she's driving. She's going towards the goal. Kerolin gets the ball, she's driving. Miedema, even the pass for Bunny's goal, you're looking at it going, that pass should never really get there. Yes, okay, we could say maybe it's a foul or whatever, but I don't think any other City player in the previous passes even tries that pass, because it's not a pass that they've wanted to make because they're scared they're going to lose the ball or turn the ball over. Whereas Miedema's just gone, right, Bunny's there, I'm just going to play it in and see what happens. Bunny has no right to win that ball, whether or not it's a foul, whether it's, the strength element or whatever. But she has no right to win that ball. Germa should just sweep that up and get rid of it. So it just looks to me now that City they're not just about playing pretty football anymore. They're about winning. And I think that's what Chelsea have had for so many years. How many times have we seen them come off the pitch going, we didn't play our best, but we got the 3 points. And that's the most important thing that matters. And I think Manchester City have similar, especially last week against London City, where they didn't play very well, but they score in the last minute. So Chelsea, I think, as I said earlier, they have to go back to the basics. They have to go back to being hard to beat. They need to try and install that fear element again in the league. And, we know also what this Chelsea team is about. They will be able to pick themselves back up. But knowing that the title's gone, knowing that you're not performing very well, it's very easy to just keep slipping down and down and down and down. So they have to find a way now. We've got to play for Champions League, and also we've got to play for a bit of pride. We've got to try and close that gap. We can't have Manchester City winning this league by 12 points. That's not what any Chelsea player wants. That's not what any Chelsea fan wants. So go out there and play with pride and try and kind of claw your way back up, because that's the only thing really that you can do in this situation.
What do you guys do as players when you're in a tough moment like this? As a team, things are disjointed, you're not having the best performances, you're under fire. As we know, football fans will be having their say on social media. You know, journalists will be writing about the team and the things that they don't think are working. What do you do as players to kind of get through moments like this?
I think it's easy to sit here and say, don't listen to the outside noise, because ultimately they're not the ones in your camp. Like, people can have their opinions, have their say, but they have no idea what's going on behind those closed doors. And I think it's one of those where you have to look at yourselves, not just as an individual, but as a collective, and be like, look, how tight knit are we? How much are we willing to push through and not, and almost like, I'm not saying there are egos, but drop the ego and actually have a bit of bite about you and say, okay, we know it's not been good enough. We know we've had a few bad performances and an extremely bad result. But then it's like, how do you look at yourselves within as a group and say, we can turn this around. We can make sure that no one penetrates this ethos and what everything they've built as a football club to be tarnished by one relatively bad season. Like, we're sitting here as if they're like bottom of the table in relegation. Like, they're not. They're still very much up the table. It's just that Man City have ran away with it a bit. But you really have to look at yourself as a player now and think, what can we get most out of this? Like Fran said, go back to the basics. Obviously, depending on Sonia's game plan, she may want to change now, because I think what she's tried to do clearly isn't working, whether it's against a top team or a lower team. And I think it sounds basic, but basics is where it has to start, and you have to put egos aside and do what's best for the group and not what you want to do individually because it's not going the right way. Is how I would expect a dressing room like that to come back at. I think they obviously miss Lucy quite a bit in her leadership from the back. I think that was obviously very apparent. But again, there's so many leaders in that dressing room that someone should be able to grab it by the scruff of the neck and say, this is Chelsea, this is not good enough. And this will not be happening again. So it'll be very interesting to see how they turn it around. Selfishly, we've got them next, so I'm kind of praying they don't decide to show up and do it all on us. But as I say, I think it's not the be-all and end-all of their season, but they do have to be conscious of not, like Fran said, getting into that slippery slope of, okay, we've lost it, like, and everyone goes within themselves, an individual, and the results just continue to plummet.
I think when a team is at kind of, I don't want to say the lowest point, because like you said, Beth, they're not in a relegation battle, but there has to be a change, and you have to kind of take that responsibility and kind of go, okay, this isn't working. We need to coach this now every single day leading into Tottenham, whether it's your build-up play, having patterns of play. When it gets to this point and the players are feeling the way they do, and I think we mentioned it last time in terms of like people looking around at each other going, well, what are you doing? What am I doing? It kind of has to get to a point, and I know not a lot of players like this, but I think when you're going through something that's so kind of, we have to go back to kind of the fundamentals and the basics, I think it's a coach's responsibility to basically give you your answers in terms of when you are playing out from the back. When you have the ball, this is your job. This is your job. I want you to pass the ball here. Tottenham press this way. They let you have this space. They let you do this. This is what, like, it has to literally go down to them finer basics. Okay, when you're in the final third, you can have a little bit more freedom in terms of playing out and doing whatever you want to do. But it has to go down to, when this player has the ball, this is where I want you to press. I want you to show them this way. When you show them this way, your player does this, your player does that. It has to go back to them kind of breaking it down to them finer details that you kind of tell the players what they are doing in their moments. And then you know, if a player doesn't do it, they're not following your game plan. They're not following what you set out to do. But at the moment, it kind of looks like someone's looking behind them saying, should I go and press it? Are you going to go and press it? Are you going to come round when I'm going out to press? So it gets to the point where, you know, they should be doing the whole week now, starting with the build-up, knowing how Tottenham press, whether it's in whatever shape or whatever it is. You've probably done it the same way the whole season. So it's like, okay, when she presses here, you have to come and get the ball. You know, I think there was a moment where Millie played the ball into Captain, and, you know, she's come to receive the ball. She's got pressure behind her. She's facing her own goal. What's the next pass? And I don't think that that's quite been worked on just yet in terms of, if she gets the ball, you have to make a movement into here to come and to come and help her. It kind of at the moment feels a little bit kind of free. I don't know whether you're going to come and get the ball, you're going to come and get the ball. So now when you're going through a bad patch, it has to be black and white. There can't be any grey areas or any questions, because then people turn around to the bench and go, well, what are we doing? And then you're kind of like, well, no, this is what we're doing. This is how we're going to do it. And this is how we're going to beat Tottenham.
I feel like you could be a coach. I feel so pumped up. I hope Chelsea watched some of that. That was amazing.
They won't invite me back to Stamford Bridge now. They'll be like, get out.
Let's chat now about the other Manchester team, Man United, who beat Liverpool 3-1. And I thought Liverpool kept Man United quiet in the first half, defended really well, stopped Jess Park getting on the ball. And obviously she's the one who often dictates play, isn't she? But then in the second half, Man United up the gears, secured the win. What did you make of this performance, Beth?
Yeah, obviously they were kind of high on life, I think, from beating us the week before. I mean, we've said it multiple times that they're not a team that should be sat where they're sat in the league based off, one, the type of players they have, but two, the style of football they play. Like that, we've seen time and time again them produce great performances, but haven't quite been able to get over the finish line with the final result. And, you know, obviously beating us, getting their first home win of the season the week before, they would have been going into this game thinking we can really do some damage here. And as you said, they nullified a lot of their threats in the first half, as you mentioned about Jess Park. And I think obviously going 1-0 down, previous Liverpool, they're back to that, here we go again, they'll sink, they'll just go within themselves. But they managed to crawl it back, get it to 1-1 and actually bring some life into the game. It's just, unfortunately, again, second half, Man United, as you said, lifted it another level, brought in substitutions that only helped strengthen them. And ultimately, it was just too much for them to cope with on the day. But I think they can be proud of, especially the first half they put out there. They are still in a position where they can get out of relegation zone. And I think their new signings that they've made as well have made a big difference for them, helping them a lot, giving them a different, not necessarily style of play, but different options, especially going forward. Obviously, we know they needed that front line to start and produce more goals for them, as it was costing them a lot. But yeah, I think it was a tough day after the second half, but during the first half, they can probably hold their heads high.
Lisa Nilsson at the double for United definitely had her shooting boots on. 2 great finishes, I thought.
Yeah, look, she hasn't played probably as much as she would have liked to at a time at Manchester United. And she's always, when I've watched her, has been a player who, you know, she has a lot of bite about her. She has a lot of kind of that drive. She likes to get forward. She makes up like the distance. She covers a lot of distance in the midfield, and she can score some really good goals. She scored against us, I believe, when we played them at Broadfield as well. So I think she's a player who needs to play consistently to get the best out of her. And obviously Manchester United have triggered a contract extension, so that gives her another year at the club. And I think as well, you know, for someone like her, you can see that she has something about her. She has that kind of nastiness that you want in the midfield. I think Manchester United obviously have had, you know, a very good midfield so far this year, but maybe they've missed that little bit of bite. They've missed that kind of that player that's going to break up play, that's going to, you know, make it difficult for teams to kind of play through. They've had, you know, Ella Toon, obviously, who they're missing now, Miyazawa, who, you know, we know what she can do with her quality, Jess Park as well coming in, but I feel like they missed that kind of player that's that pivotal player who'll just break up play and also, you know, take shots. And she is that kind of player that does it. So, yeah, I was happy to see her get a couple of goals, and hopefully, you know, she gets a run of games to really kind of showcase herself, because I don't think so far she's been given that opportunity at Manchester United to play consistently game after game. And obviously, like we spoke about many weeks ago in terms of Man United having that squad depth, I think she's showing that he can trust her. He can trust putting her into games. He can trust her starting games. And that's what you want as a manager as well. When, you know, the games are going to come thick and fast again for them when Champions League starts again. So he needs to be able to rely on these players and trust that these players can deliver. And obviously, you know, she showed that yesterday in terms of the performance and also the goals.
Man United then, now up to second in the table. That win taking them a point above Chelsea. Do we think they have what it takes to be in one of those Champions League places come the end of the season? I mean, they're performing pretty well right now.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing for me is that, like, obviously Fran can vouch this, but at Chelsea it was like you had that family feeling. You knew that like whatever you did, your teammate had your back. Whether that's happening there right now is different, but at Man United, that's what you feel is happening. They look so together and strong. Like even talking about Lisa's 2 goals, look at the way the team celebrated around her. Like it's a player who's not getting the minutes that she probably wants. She's not getting regular game time, but the joy in which it's not just about, well, obviously everyone wants to win games, but you can't fake reactions like that to a player scoring. So she's truly cared about and respected within the dressing room. And I think that's what's helping them this season. Like they seem like they've gone to another level, but as a whole squad, not just as individual players. Like you say, you can bring in individual brilliance as much as you want, but if those individual parts don't work together and as a collective, you're not likely to get the results. Like they welcome Jess Parkin with open arms, and look how much she's flourishing. They've made a calibre of signings, and it just looks like and feels like from the outside. Obviously, I don't know what's going on in behind closed doors, but they just want the best for each other, and they're willing to run through what you'd say brick walls for each other. And I think the way that they're performing still, like don't get me wrong, every team's had a bit of a slip up this year, and they had a few results that you're questioning, okay, are they able to sustain the amount of games with Champions League, with the cup runs, with the league? They've started to somehow find that form a little bit again. And I think Mark's doing a better job of rotating his squad, as you say, because he knows he's going to need these players coming into the latter part of the season, because players will just burn out. And the last thing you want is you can say favoured 11, but you can't physically expect so much demand on them without burning them out enough that they're not going to be able to keep producing the performances you want from them. So for me, as it stands, I think they are looking strong. They are looking like a team that should be able to qualify in the Champions League. Like you say, it is quite tight at the top between second, third, fourth. So anything can happen, but if they keep going the way they're going, and as well, if they do manage to beat Chelsea in the Subway Cup final, that again is going to give them that extra added bit of confidence going back into the league as well.
It is exciting. It's definitely the most competitive the league has ever been. Let's get to your game now, Beth. Spurs away to West Ham, and an important win for your team, obviously, to bounce back from the last result against Liverpool. Some great goals, a killer save, a goal line clearance as well. It was a real battle, this game.
Yeah, it wasn't easy. I mean, I feel we had a lot of the ball. We had a lot of possession. I don't think first half we had sustained possession, but we started so strong, 10, 15 minutes, and they literally hit us on the counter and scored the goal. And then it was kind of, we almost lost that little confidence element in front of goal. I think you could see, obviously, there were shots flying in everywhere. After the game, I think I saw we had 28 shots, and I think there was on like between 5 and 7 on target, which obviously isn't great, but I mean, end of the day, you've got to try and take those opportunities. They obviously play with a back five, so trying to draw players out, creating those pockets was going to be difficult at times. They were obviously wanting the win off the back of the previous week as well. But I felt like we remained calm throughout the game. I think there was never really a massive clear-cut chance for us. So it did take that individual brilliance. Obviously, Matilda Vinberg's goal, unbelievable, like witnessing that. And we say to the girl all the time that you need to start and shoot more, and whatever went through her head at that moment, I'm glad it did. Could you question whether Meg Walsh could have been a little bit more prepared for it? It was an unbelievable strike, but she kind of looks as if she's flapping a little bit or wasn't prepared. And then obviously we all know about Olivia Holt and her striking ability. She'd had a few shots in the game, a few wayward. The one in the second half, the keeper Meg Walsh made a great save. But yeah, as soon as that left her boot, she must have known that was flying in, and it was big for us because, like you say, we've kind of had good performances, and last week was tough for us to lose away at Liverpool the way we did in the dying minutes of the game. And we know if we want to be in a position to compete at the top, these are games that we have to see out, and we have to find that resilience within and come back from. I wouldn't say it was the prettiest of performances. I think at times the pitch made the style of play you want to play difficult. It was quite bobbly, but we're all playing on the same pitch. But yeah, obviously, absolutely ecstatic that we got the win and we got the points. Gutted about not having another clean sheet, but yeah, to come back from 1-0 down and win 2-1 was a really good result for us.
Yeah, the only thing that maybe put a bit of a dampener on things was the late red card that Drew Spence picked up. Obviously, you're playing Chelsea next week. Not ideal, is it, to lose one of the team's key midfield players? How do you think the team's feeling about that?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, look, Drew is probably one of our most established and key players to make everything at Tottenham work. Like she's got that tenacity, she's got that bite, she's got the aggression. She breaks up play well. She's an intelligent footballer, and it's going to be a big loss for us. Obviously, she knows it. It's one of them where you think, oh, it was a little bit late. Could it have been a yellow? But she knew it was a bit high, so she only left. We all know what it is, and she didn't really give the referee a choice, and it was right in front of her. And she's going to be absolutely gutted because she knows the next 3 games are 3 big games for us. We've got Chelsea, Villa, which is a big game, and then the FA Cup game against London City. So she's going to be a huge loss. But then again, this is where now you have to rally in and say, look, Martin's brought these players in. You've brought in more squad depth. Now this is your opportunity to use them. But yeah, obviously everyone at the club's gutted about it. But that's football, and sometimes these things happen. And she knows herself, and she was very apologetic as soon as she did it. She didn't even argue with the ref. She made sure the girl was okay, and she got off the pitch. So it's tough, but we'll keep her in good spirits as best we can.
Yeah. And like you say, sometimes it is an opportunity for another player to come in and kind of make their mark, isn't it? Right, next to discuss is the Everton-Villa game. Everton securing their first win. They've gone and done it at Goodison Park. Confidence boost for them. And they are pulling away from Liverpool now in that relegation battle.
They've obviously struggled at Goodison Park. I think there was a bit more made out about it, obviously, after us beating them last week. It became more a bit of a headline than probably, you haven't really spoken about it until that kind of moment. So I think there was a lot of pressure on Everton for this game, actually, especially the manager. Maybe not in terms of kind of the club looking at him going to sack him, but I think for the outside noise, for maybe the players' belief, a little bit of trust there. So I think it was a really, really important game for them. But I mean, for me, both goals for Everton, it's just awful defending from Aston Villa. I think, of course, if you're not going to score from open play, of course, corners and set pieces are a way to score goals. But looking at the goals, I think there's a theme that's running at the moment in women's football and a little bit in men's football where people are just not checking their shoulders on set pieces, on second phases. It's been in a lot of games that I've been watching, whether the ball's been cleared, defenders are moving forward, but they're not checking to see what's behind them. They don't have an open body shape. They're not looking over their shoulders to go, is there someone peeling off at the back post? And both goals are completely identical, basically, whether or not, it's in different parts of the pitch, like very marginally different. But it just seems at the moment that everyone is just going, right, the ball's there, I'm going to follow the ball and just look at the ball. I'm not going to look at anything else because if the ball comes to me, I can see the ball. But no one's kind of looking. And I think that's something that you get taught at a very young age. I don't know if that's something maybe now that is not being related into people's training, or when they're doing set pieces, they're not making, a bigger deal about that. But I'm a forward, so I'm probably quite guilty of it as well, where I'm just following the ball. But I think defensively, if you're in a zone, if you're meant to be in the line that's coming up with the ball, you should know what's going on behind you. And both times Aston Villa switched off. And it's a shame because Ebony Salmon's goal was an absolute screamer. So, if you're winning the game off that kind of goal, you're looking at it going, what a fantastic finish. And, you're looking at it going away 1-0. But conceding them kind of goals from set pieces, it's kind of criminal to me. And it's something that is creeping in the women's game as well, by the way. It's not just Aston Villa. It's, you're looking, I mentioned it against Manchester City. I mentioned it twice, actually, Manchester City against Chelsea, the goal they conceded, the chance they conceded against London City. It's creeping in and it's becoming more and more common. And for forwards, it's a dream. For people who are peeling off the back post, you're going to get them opportunities. So, yeah, I think it's kind of a shout out to women's football. Check your shoulders and open your body shape.
Yeah. Keep your eyes open, honestly, because like you said, Fernandez just drifts in, gets a totally free header basically both times. That just cannot happen again. They'll be gutted to watch that back in the highlights. But like you say, Ebony Salmon, that goal from her was unreal. And I just think she's been superb for Villa. Obviously, amazing finish, but more just her work rate. She's making things happen, isn't she?
Yeah, and look, I wouldn't sit here and say she's a type of player that you see scoring every week, but when she scores well, and she can hit rockets. She's obviously strong. She's got a lot of pace, and I think you're starting to see, as you just mentioned, then a much more hard-working forward than previous. I think obviously having been around playing with her at England and stuff, you would kind of get the sense that she wasn't necessarily a player that would. I think it'd be harsh to say lazy, but she wasn't someone that would put herself around a bit for the sake of the team. Like, we knew she would be amazing on transition and her pace and stuff, but what is she actually doing to help her team out? And I think what we're seeing now from her is more of a teammate vibe, where she's actually willing to do the work for the team, and also getting the rewards and going and scoring at the other end. And it's nice to see. And Villa kind of need that as well, because they're not in a cushy position themselves, so they're needing to try and have someone pick up the points. Obviously, we know Kirsty Hansen's is usually one of their standouts, picking up goals for them, and Rachel Daly, but I think they've been a little bit quiet on the scoring front, so they need someone to be able to step up and fill those shoes a bit. And she's definitely been doing that, but as we've just said, their defensive element has really let them down, because there was an opportunity there for them to take home all 3 points, and they lost it through 2 set pieces.
Okay, Brighton's game now. They face London City Lionesses. Before we get into the debrief of that, how are you getting on, Fran? Obviously, Brighton fans are like, where's Fran Kirby? We miss her on the pitch.
Saw a couple of comments that I was in Italy. Which I'm not, guys, which I'm not. Yeah, no, I'm good. I picked up a knock last week, so it's been a bit frustrating to miss obviously the last 2 games, but I should be back, very, very soon. So it's nothing that's kind of like kept me out for a while. So that's nice to know that I'll be back in with the team, in the next couple of weeks, if not this week. So yeah, no, it's been frustrating to miss them, but I think the performance was really good from us yesterday. I felt we managed the game very well, apart from one moment. And I think, we had so many chances. We hit the post twice in the first half. We dominated possession. We hit the post, and then they went up the other end and scored. And it was one of them ones watching it, and it's something that I think is creeping in with us a little bit, is, when things are not quite working to how we want it to work, we kind of don't know what else to do. And we don't really have that kind of element of keep going, keep going, keep going. It becomes more a bit like, we're not scoring. We kind of get that bit more concerned that we don't have a final product, rather than going, we're dominating. So yeah, I think it was a really good finish from Freya Godfrey. The transition really, really killed us in that moment. I think we obviously, like I said, we went from hitting the post to then conceding. So we need to try and stop that, make a tactical foul somewhere, pull someone back, do something that they can't, just go up the other end of the pitch. I think, defensively, we have to try and keep her on the outside a little bit more. We know a player like Freya Godfrey, she wants to come inside and get a shot off. She's done that a couple of times. Can we work a little bit harder to show her more down the line to make her cross? And yeah, I think it was a really disappointing result, because I felt we dominated the game, but dominating game doesn't help you win football games. You've got to take your chances. You've got to put the ball in the back of the net. You've got to defend well. Yeah, I think we know now as a team we are comfortable in possession of the ball. We are a team, I think, that likes to have the ball, that likes to have patterns of play. We know what the style is. We know what's expected. It's just going to that next level in terms of being ruthless when we do have them chances, and also try and limit, we don't concede many chances, but unfortunately we concede on them chances. So we have to try and find a way that we make it more difficult. When we do concede the chance, it's not a clear-cut chance. It's not a chance that's going to end up in the back of the net. Yes, the own goal is, it is what it is in terms of, she has to try and get something on it because the striker is behind her, and unfortunately it's gone in the back of the net. But, there's so much more to it than just that moment in terms of the transition. We have to try and stop that transition earlier. Maybe do we need to commit so many players forward? Can we afford to maybe leave another player back because we are struggling in the transition? Just someone who can just break up that play, make a foul, and make it more difficult for that. So there are things that we need to look at. But I think overall, in terms of on the ball, chances created, I think we can take a lot of positives going into the next game.
Yeah, definitely unlucky with those chances that came off the post. But it was Freya Godfrey's top bins goal that won it for London City Lionesses. She's obviously a standout player for them. I just love her directness, the way she drives forward with the ball. Such an exciting player to watch, only 20 years old. Surely a very bright future ahead.
Yeah, she's certainly showing her qualities, obviously coming from the Arsenal side. And I think what I quite like about her is, yeah, you touched on she's quite direct, but she can go left or right. I think her previous few goals, she's gone 1v1 and she's gone down the right and scored from the goal against Man City, for instance. Like, she's gone on her right foot and she's hit it in that way. As a defender, you kind of want to try and get the person away from the goal, but on their weakest foot. But in terms of in front of goal, she's looking like she's not got much of a weak foot, whether she's chopping inside, curling it in the top bins, or if she's going out on the outside, little shimmy touch and hitting it. So I think it is very exciting. She's still very young. And the more and more experience she could gain in this league and continue to embrace the confidence in the style of play that she's playing at the minute will only do wonders for her. Obviously, we saw she got a recent England call up. Chances are she's probably going to get another one if she's going to continue in this form, in a position where she can start and gain more experience on an international level that will only then help her going into the league and help London City continue to pick up results, because she is looking like their bright spark at the minute in terms of goals. And if they want to remain still bumping up for points in the league, then she's currently the answer for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Had to give her flowers. I thought she's been fantastic this season. Let's look where we're at then in terms of the title race and those 3 Champions League places. So Man City, 11 points clear of Man United, who are in second place on 28 points. Chelsea are third with 27, with Arsenal and Spurs only 1 point behind them. Arsenal do have a game in hand, though. Shows how competitive this league has been this year, because I think it's hard, maybe even impossible, to call the top 3 for certain. But I'm going to put you both on the spot, quick fire. Who do you think's going to do it? Top 3, go.
I'm saying City, Man United, Spurs.
Fair play.
I think City, Man United, Arsenal.
Oh, neither of you back in Chelsea. Right, let's move swiftly on then. Yesterday was the FIFA Women's Champions Cup final. Arsenal coming out on top as the inaugural winners. Was quite a clash in the end between these two teams. Looked like Arsenal had it in the bag until a penalty was awarded to Corinthians in the 96th minute, literally the last kick of the game. The Brazilian side scored that to take them into extra time, but Arsenal eventually got the job done, with Caitlin Ford scoring for the first time since September. Arsenal went into that game clear favourites, so they'll just be pleased they got the job done, right?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting tournament, because I think you play against teams that are just different to what you're used to playing against. Obviously, the Corinthians are very different in terms of the style, in terms of the way that they play. Yeah, I actually was watching the game until like the last kind of few minutes. I was like, I'm going to take the dog for a walk, because, you know, the game is done. And then my dad messaged me and was like, are you watching Arsenal? And then as soon as someone sends you that message, you know you've missed something, in terms of you missed something happening. So then I came back in and finished watching the game. But no, I mean, I don't agree that the game was played at the Emirates, to be honest. I mean, obviously it's a great venue. It's a cool place to play. But I think if you're going to play a tournament, you can't play at the home of a team that's playing in the tournament. I feel like that's only something maybe that happens in a international tournament. But yeah, I mean, it's a cool tournament to win, and obviously congrats to Arsenal in terms of winning that. But I mean, I think the last goal, you can't win a game and a tournament off the last goal, in terms of the goalkeeper, in terms of the finish. But I mean, if you don't shoot, you don't score. So credit to her and credit to Arsenal in terms of the way that they played. But I really enjoyed watching the Corinthians in terms of a different team, a different style. Obviously watched them against Gotham as well, in terms of, you know, what they bring. And yeah, I mean, I don't know too much about the tournament, but I mean, it's cool to be involved in it, I'm sure, and cool to win.
Yeah, I guess for Arsenal, it's another bit of silverware, isn't it? So they'll be buzzing about that. And the Corinthians fan base were absolutely incredible. Like, you could hear them on the TV. And obviously, there's always a good turnout of Arsenal fans at the Emirates. So I'm sure it was absolutely bouncing on the day. And talking of Arsenal, possible bit of transfer news which is about to drop. So far, we know Katie McCabe is leaving Arsenal at the end of the season. She's had a very honest conversation with them about her future. And then McCabe is apparently talking to some other WSL clubs, some NWSL clubs as well. Arsenal fans will be really sad about that. You know, she's a legend of the club. Where do we think she would suit? Where do we think she'll go next?
I mean, you hear Katie McCabe and you think Arsenal. Can I see her going to another team in the WSL, knowing how much of a legendary status she's achieved at Arsenal? Honestly, no. But is it impossible? Also, no. I think the way the game's going, she may look to want. She's obviously been at Arsenal most of her career, so she might want to actually experience a different league, a different culture, like, and it could be anything different. Obviously, the NWSL is becoming a lot more appealing towards international players. We've seen many types of players want to go out there and experience something different. I feel like it's hard because I feel like with the fan base, you obviously see a lot online, and I feel like she's got a huge fan base, but then they've also seemed to turn on her a little bit, which is quite sad considering everything she's done for that football club. Like, you know, she's can be a bit of a nasty player to play against because she's just so like in your face. She's strong, she's physical. She will just go through you and the ball. And I think Arsenal have always needed someone like that, like to have her personality, to bring out that bit of bite. And I think it'll be a huge loss for Arsenal, and not just her as a player, but probably her personality. She'll be a big character in that dressing room. I know I've played with some girls that have come through Tottenham that said she always would put an arm around the youngsters when they would move on. And I think having someone like that is really important in your dressing room because, you know, yes, they're a senior player, yes, they're well experienced, but they're also there, like you say, wanting to put an arm around and look after the youngsters. So I'd like to think that wherever she ends up next, she flourishes, and whether that's in the league or not. But can I see her honestly playing in another team in the WSL? My answer would be no.
I also find it really interesting as a player, because it happened with us at Brighton last year in terms of obviously a few girls getting moved on. It's weird to me that a player is going to leave for free when that player has played nearly every game this year. And I think it's kind of similar with Kim Little in terms of obviously she's out of contract as well in the summer. We don't know what she's going to do. She starts every game. Katie McCabe starts every game. They signed Taylor Hines. Obviously she's injured now, but she started ahead of Taylor Hines. So I never understand with football. Of course, we talk about age. We talk about, you know, what they bring quality wise in terms of can they still do it at the highest level, whatever it is. But she starts every single game. So how are you going to lose a player for free that starts every game? It doesn't really make sense to me. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, but obviously Renee trusts her enough to start her ahead of a player that they've signed in in summer. But obviously if they're linked to obviously Anna Battier, then, you know, that might be a solution for them, but they still got to sign her. They still got to get her through the door. So if you don't sign her and you lose Katie McCabe on a free, how does that mirror up? How does that work? So I'm quite interested to see how that develops. And like you said, Beth, whether she stays in the league or not.
I think with that though, obviously, correct me if I'm wrong, is she on a free as well? Yeah, so it's not like they're having to pay anything. So that's the only thing where I'm like, had they have needed her earlier and would have had to have bought her out from Barcelona, potentially then would it have been more of a, like, you don't want to lose profit when you're bringing players in ultimately, but if they're both on a free, you're kind of at the same level as you were before they come in. Like, and it's not like you're replacing, like, for a youngster who hasn't got the experience. On a Battier's like got experience in the WSL. She's a well-profound fullback. But then, like you said, as a business, we all know football's a business model. Like, they can sit and say, yeah, we care about like, we know it's a business model. We know how it works, and that usually these teams, they want to if they've invested in you so much, they want them returns in some way or whatever. But yeah, I agree. I think it is interesting that they are allowing her to go on a free.
Look, she is a player that will give her all, regardless on her situation. I think most players are like that in terms of when they've been at a club for so long, they will give everything for that club until the last day, whether or not they're staying or they're leaving. So I don't have any doubts with that. But it's kind of like, right, okay, cheers, thanks, Katie McCabe. You're free to go. But by the way, we haven't actually secured a replacement for you. It all sounds a bit crazy. But I mean, that's how football is. And we, like you said, we know it's a business model, and we know that clubs are going to do everything they can to save a bit of money and not buy someone now, and kind of work out more the salary rather than, the payment. So it'll be interesting to see how it develops.
These two are baffled. The WSL deadline day is tomorrow, the 3rd of February. So we will see how that plays out. Thank you two, as ever, for your insights and wisdom. Thank you, everyone, for listening and supporting the podcast. And we will speak to you soon. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.